The way I want the item selection to work in this game is as follows. If I touch one of the items, one of the three items, I would like the item to be somehow transparent, which is indicating that that's the item I'm selecting. Then if I click on another or touch another item, the previous item that was transparent, I would like it not to be transparent anymore, and then the new item should be transparent. So that's how I'm changing the selection between the different elements. Also, if I have selected an item and I click on rotation, rotation will make the pet rotate for a couple of seconds. So if I click on rotation, I would like, first of all, to have all of these selections cleared so that nothing is selected. And then I would like it so that the user interface is blocked while this thing is rotating. And then when it ends, then I can again select different elements from here. Or click again on rotation. So I would like everything to be blocked while a rotation is taking place. Now, in this lesson, we're not going to implement the rotation and we're not going to implement placing the elements yet on the screen. But what we will implement is that selection process and UI blocking process that I just described. So let's begin by implementing it for picking a new item. When I pick a new item, the first thing I would like to check is whether the UI, the user interface, is blocked or not. So let's add then something else in here that will be called UI blocked. And it will be false because the user interface at the start will not be blocked. So if I want to pick an item, the first thing I want to check is whether this user interface is not blocked. Because if it is blocked, then I'm not going to do anything. Actually, let's place this here so that we can test it. So if this is blocked, nothing will happen. If it's not blocked, we'll pick an item. Then what's the first thing that I want to do? Say I had selected the candy and now I'm selecting the apple. I would like to clear the previous selections. So let's assume that there's a method called clear selection, which we will implement in a bit. That will be the first thing that's called. And then I want to select the element that I just picked. So selected item, which is this one that we created, will now be equal to sprite. Sprite, let's remember, it's the one that I've touched. So if I've touched the candy, sprite will be the candy. If I touch the duck, sprite will be the duck. How is this clear selection going to work? Let's implement it. It should be something simple. Basically, I'm going to go through all the buttons that I have and make sure that they're not transparent. So that's the other thing that I needed to add here. So after I clear the selection, I want the sprite to be a little bit transparent. For that, we need to access the alpha property. If you set it to 0.4, that will be a semi-transparent selection, a semi-transparent sprite. We're having a bug somewhere, so it says here line 80. Yeah, this shouldn't be this. It should be just clear selection. Let's reload the page. So see what happens now if I click on any of these elements. I'm actually making it more transparent. I'm actually making it transparent. So the first thing that I wanna do when I clear the selection is clear the previous transparency. So I'm gonna access these dot buttons, and I'm gonna use a for each loop to go through each one of these elements. So I'm setting up this loop to go through each one of the buttons, and all of the buttons will have now an alpha of 1, which means no transparency. Let's test that. So see how cannot read. Oh, this should be buttons, not button. Buttons. If I click on one, see how now I can change. I'm getting rid of the previous transparency. And I also need to make sure that I'm not selecting anything now. Selected item will be null. Selected item is what we will use to place the element on the screen, which we're not doing in this lesson, but we're keeping track of it because we will need it. So if I click on one of the elements, then that's the selected item. And there's no, if I somehow clear selections, which can be here, but we are also going to do that in here. We're not selecting anything. So what about rotation? Rotation also needs to check whether the UI is blocked or not, because if the UI is blocked, we can't do anything. There's something happening and we need to wait for that to end. That's just how we are defining it in this game. So if the UI is blocked, then don't do anything. And before you start the rotation, we're actually going to block the UI, because the rotation is going to take some seconds. So UI blocked is now true. And we're also going to clear selection. In case we were selecting anything, we're not selecting anything now. And we're going to change the alpha of the sprite of the rotation sprite to indicate that that's the current selection or selected button, because it's not really an object. It represents something different. These three elements are elements that we're going to place on the screen, whereas the rotation is an action in the pet, so it's not really an item. See how if I press it now, this one's selected, and now I can't click on the other ones anymore because the UI is blocked. And lastly, actually that would be it for this case, because what's going to happen next you'll have the rotation happening, and when that rotation ends, you will the UI will be released. We will set this to false, so that then you can do, if you want another rotation, or you can click on any of the elements. So just to summarize what we've done here, if you had a look at the initial video where I was showcasing the game, it will make a lot of sense. So what we're doing here is basically allowing the user to click on a button and make that button a bit transparent, while at the same time getting rid of any prior selections that you might have. And also, if the UI is for some reason blocked, which could be because the pet is rotating or because something else is happening in the game, if we keep that, if we have that switch, it allows us to have control of what the player can and can't do. Because if while the pet is rotating, if then you can rotate it again and you click multiple times and then you start putting in elements, it might behave in a strange way, or it might actually be a way more fun game. That's up to you to give it a go. But we are basically learning how to block the UI so that it behaves the way that we want. And when we click rotate, we're blocking the UI. You can't change the selection until the rotation ends, which we will implement later.